Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On the agenda today are the budgets of PLLO and CHR. We'll tackle first PLLO, if you don't mind, kasi sandali lang ito. Ang liit ang budget nila eh. So, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Senator Greg Hunasan. Good morning, sir. And welcome to the Senate. So, let's get it over with. Briefing muna yung presentation mo ng PLLO, then we ask some questions, and then after that, CHR. So, you don't have to leave the room, anyway, wala namang connection. This is not like the courtroom na pwede kayo mag-connive, mag-conspire. So, go ahead, please.
Good morning, Senator Lacson. Good morning, Senator Hunasan. Our proposed budget for fiscal year 2019 is 88.578 million. The PLLO requested for a total budget of 116.675 million inclusive of RLIP. For more particulars, Mr. Chair, may I turn you over to my staff, Francis.
Good morning, sirs. Good morning, Senator Lacson. Good morning, Senator Hunasan. Sir, our proposed budget is 116 million, but the DBM gave us only 84,849,000, broken down as 40,834,000 for personal services, 44 million for MOOE. Wala sir kaming capital outlay. This is the breakdown of our proposal for DBM. Sir, as compared to our current budget, we have a 5%, total 5% increase, sir, as compared to 2019. For personal services, the increase of 20% is the implementation of the 4 tranches of the salary standardization. For MOOE, 1% is the provision for inflation. Capital outlay is 0. So we have a total increase of 4.2 million for 2019. That's it, sir.
That's it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Under memo order 128 as amended by 142,
Yes, sir.
1987. Ano ba yung mga tasks ninyo? Secretary Sitoy, my good friend from Cordova.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Gusto lang namin i-relate sa budget and of course your output for the year that was current year and 2017.
Yes.
So we'd like to be educated. Ano ba yung mga tasks ninyo under the memo, presidential memo?
The staff consists of, these are the staff members, the authorized positions, 38, the failed positions, 31, and there is one presidential advisor, and that is my humble self.
No, sir. Tasks. Ano ba yung mandate ninyo? What are you supposed to do? And why do you need 80? Your proposed obligations for 2019, your appropriations 84.8, di ba? Tapos yung RLIP, yung retirement, life insurance premium, 2.7. So gusto ko lang malaman, ano ba yung ginagawa ninyo? Ano ba yung dapat ninyong gawin para ma-juxtapose man lang natin yung output versus your assigned task or mission or mandate?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. We promote presidential initiatives and act as a conduit between the office of the President and the individual members of Congress, the NGOs, and the other cooperative interest groups supportive of the President. We act as the presidential link to other interested groups supported of the President in order to build support behind the President's program. We coordinate the President's day-to-day relations with the senators and the representatives. We act as presidential advisor on legislative affairs, monitor to the President the progress of administration bills, and in fact, we report that every cabinet meeting, and perform such other functions as will be assigned by the President. And incidentally, during the sessions of the consultative committee, I was assigned as observer, and I was present there every session time. And also, we have attended and we have cooperated with the consultative committee during the information drive of the proposed constitution. And we even initiated the information drive in certain places like Cebu and other places in Luzon. Those are the, and in addition to that, we attend meetings of the cabinet clusters. We monitor the desire of the cabinet clusters for possible legislation, and we cooperate and we help them in the formulation of proposed bills, and we recommend the proposal to Congress, to the House, and to the Senate. And finally, we monitor every pending bill in both houses and report to the President every cabinet meeting the status of these bills.
In the presentation that you, at least that you submitted to us in sa briefer, no, before your presentation now, nakalagay doon, ang target niyo is 75% of all the bills, the 40 bills that the President has included in his legislative priorities. Now, what are those bills? Yung 40 bills, and kung target ninyo 75%, where are you now?
As far as the bills that are approved are concerned,
40 bills na nasa prioridad ng Pangulo.
yes, we have succeeded in asking Congress to approve into...
Hindi muna po, yung bills muna. Yung
bills.
40 bills, and then doon natin i-compare do sa output ninyo, kasi ang target ninyo for 2018 and 2019, 75% of those bills. Now we want to find out what are the 40 bills under the listed under the priority or the agenda of the President. So we can more or less justify your budget kung nasa 60% na ba kayo, 50%, and ano yung timeline ninyo to accomplish the at least 75% ng mga bills na yon.
Referring to the bills that were under priority, Mr. Chair, and which became laws, we have the Free Higher Education Act, the Comprehensive Tax Reform Program, the Philippine Qualifications Framework, amendments to the NIA Charter, Free Irrigation Service Act, and to our thinking, Mr. Chair, we have scored around 80% of those listed as priority bills in the legislative agenda.
80%. So you have exceeded your target for 2018 and 2019. So you can rest already because naka 80% na kayo. Ang target nyo 75% for 2018 and 2019.
Yes.
And it's only September 2018. Naka 80% na kayo doon sa mga priority bills?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Really?
And those which are due for approval are the National Land Use Act. First, the utilization of the COCO levy fund, which is already under bicameral consideration, and the Land Use Act approved already on third reading. These are part of the legislative priorities. The right sizing of the national government, the amendments to the Public Service Act, including the strengthening of the Public Service Act, the strengthening of the NTC, and the providing open access to data transmission, the Social Security Act amendments, the enhanced universal health care, and the allowable recoverable system. And of course, there is the pending federalism measure under both houses. The Indo.
Mr. Secretary, excuse me. Meron kayong sinabit dito, 17th Congress, priority legislative measures. Nakalista yung 40 ito, no? Okay. Enacted into law 9. If you divide 9 by 40, that's 22.5%. So, medyo malayo sa 80%. Anyway, I'll yield the floor to Senator Nasan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Sitoy, good morning. Good morning. My first question is, how are you? I mean, not only how are you, I say that in this, please do not be offended, no? Is your present job as head of the PLLO adding or subtracting to your lifespan?
I'm more excited in my work, and so that is expanding my lifespan.
That's good.
Although I am now almost 83.
That's nice to hear, Secretary. Now, related, I will take off from where the chair ended, no? Temporarily ended. When we met a few days ago, we were talking about a department that will handle disaster risk reduction management. Now, you have basically dealt with legislative action.
Yes,
okay.
Yes,
But
Mr.
considering
Senator.
the realistic timeline, we agreed that maybe we can consider other avenues like executive action. Would you recall correctly what we discussed?
Yes, Mr. Senator.
Okay. My question is it possible for you to submit to your committee so that your committee will develop a better appreciation of the way forward, no? In terms of our timeline? What measures through executive action can complement the efforts of both houses of Congress moving in certain directions, no?
We are considering your suggestion, Mr. Senator, but we are awaiting our meeting with the chair lady of the subcommittee, Senator Loren Legarla.
Okay.
And we will voice out your suggestion, and after which we will suggest to the President your idea of coming out with an executive order.
Yes, but I suggest you suggest that to the President when the President is in a good mood, para he will be receptive to this idea, because we are watching him on TV and sometimes he does not look very happy. No? So just consider that. No? We will accept that response for the moment. Now let me turn to, is it Francis or Irene? Huwag ka
Francis,
magala, Irene. This is just a suggestion. No? Sabi mo wala kayong capital outlay.
For 2019, sir.
Okay. Basically, your function of the PLLO is coordination and information gathering, correct?
Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Let me frame my question properly para we can develop a common understanding. No? I think the way forward is connectivity when you talk of information and coordination.
That's correct.
And I think we have a tool that is underutilized, which is technology, information and communications technology. Now, Irene ba o Francis?
Francis, sir.
Francis. Okay. Sa tingin ko, this is just my opinion, no? So you can put it through the rigors of your think tank. Baka pwede nyo, kung maihabol pa, develop the wherewithal to input as part of your capital outlay yung infrastructure.
Yes, sir.
Because, Secretary, Secretary Sitor and Secretary Gallardo, ang concern namin palagi, lagi namin pinag-uusapan yan ni Senator Lacson. Our concern, as we try to look forward, is the good things that the President wants to do for the country and our people must be institutionalized. And that includes your job as Presidential Legislative Liaison Office. We must set this in motion para whoever heads the PLLO under future presidents will have the tools at his disposal. So siguro, Francis, tingnan ninyo, we raised this, by the way, when we were looking at the budget of the DICT and other agencies, no? Na kuminsan we forget na the infrastructure, yung infrastructure, which is not very visible, no? Fiber optics, nakabaon yan, alam mo na, hindi natin nakikita yan, can be categorized as capital outlay. No? That's a permanent, institutionalized effort to enhance connectivity. And I assure you, ladies and gentlemen, it's very cost-effective. No? Senator Lacson and other forward-looking senators have been proactively considering this. No? Na in fact, ang direction natin, ito, executive branch pa lang, is e-government. It will save government billions of dollars. So, mailalagay natin yan sa mas cost-effective endeavors, no? That will go beyond how we categorize our fiscal management. Okay? So, please consider that lang. Para kung hindi man natin maihabol sa 2019, then for future considerations.
Sir, if I may.
Yes, please, Francis.
Sir, yes, sir.
Pasensya na, nagbubulong ang Senator Lacson, but
Sir, actually, sir, in compliance to sir, ISSP, yung strategic IT system plan, sir, the ICT recommended to the DBM, sir, the approval of parang portion lang, sir, ng our plan. We have, sir, already an existing electronic legislative liaison service project. And we are in the middle of implementation, sir. That's why, sir, if for that, sir, maybe DBM will no longer give us funds because we already have, sir. And we are in the implementation stage of the ELLS project.
Francis, I have a different idea. The Philippine presidency is one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful among the presidential democracies. That's why sabi ko, if you catch the president in a good mood, pag sinabi ng presidente, guaranteed yan, it will move. Okay? So if you have the ear of the president and you're able to present this comprehensively in terms he will understand as our highest leader, no? I think it will move. But I leave it all up to your better judgment. Okay? By the way, let share with you what we are talking about. No? Yung South Korea, they are saving at least $20 billion when they started moving towards e-government in 1987. Di ba nung 1986 nag-EDSA tayo, we were hoping for systemic improvements, no, in the system, no? Kaya lang, alam mo na, nakalimutan natin, we just, concentrated on personalities. Maybe that's, especially in your case, no, Francis, you're, no. By the way, one caveat before I end my questions, no? The problem with technology is sometimes when we harness it too much, it makes patience obsolete. Patience is important, no, for a developing country like ours. It's like falling in love, Francis, no? It's like relationships, no? Hindi mo pwedeng i-delete o i-send o copy-paste yan. You have to work on it, no? So, balansin lang natin para we do not lose the human element that is so essential for a developing country like ours. Okay? So, I'm just putting that on your table para you can, when you give us your feedback, your committee, the feedback, then we can view this comprehensively, and when this is defended in plenary, your budget, we can go beyond the budget and incorporate some degree of, vision.
Thank you so much, Senator Onasan, for the advice. We take note of that.
Thank you.
And referring to the question of Senator Lacson before, while he was computing as only 27%, the 22% the bills that passed into law, my estimate of 80% referred to the movement of the bills from the beginning, including those that were that became laws, and the movement up to the point where some bills are now under bicameral consideration.
I was going to end my questions, but after what you said, I think the mandate of the PLLO is not limited to the legislative agenda. I think you must develop the capability to put your ears on the ground. Example, no? I'm just saying this. This is academic, no? Did we see the last reorganization in the House during the SONA coming? Did we predict it? Did we have information that it will happen? No, I'm not looking for somebody to blame. I'm just saying maybe that is part of your mandate, so that we can equip the President with the accurate, timely, and complete information that will allow him to make, rational, intelligent, informed, long-term policy directions, including tactical decisions. Now, let me go back to my question. You may or may not answer it. Did we see that coming?
Mr. Chair,
kung off the record, ibulong na ninyo sa amin ni Senator Lacson. Because, okay. Sige lang.
Very good.
Secretary, we're not blaming you or your office. We're just saying maybe that was the President's Day. I hope, Mr. Chairman, I'm not digressing from the topic, no. But I think as we measure your budgetary requirements, against your mission, and I'm sharing with you what I think your mission, written or unwritten, should be, then maybe we could have helped the country and the President if incidents like that were avoided. Yes, okay. Yes, okay. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, next topic, your disbursement rate is high at almost 95%, di ba? But your obligation rate is one thing. Dahil out of 86.8 million, already released to you, for the first semester, nasa 41% pa lang kayo. So, why?
Yes, sir, if I may. Sir, as program, sir, our disbursement plan for the first quarter is 44.34%. It's not, sir, 50%. So it's 44 for the first semester and 56% for the second semester. 2018. Yes, sir.
Hindi pa tapos yung second semester, September pa lang. We're talking of
Sir,
the
June
first
30,
semester.
sir. Yes, first semester, sir.
As of June 30, your obligation rate, kasi ang na-obligate pa lang ninyo, na-release na lahat ito, by the way, ng
Yes,
DBM, yung 86.8 million. Ang na-obligate nyo pa lang, 35.6 million. So, it is low at 41%. Although your disbursement rate is high.
Yes.
No? Yung sa mga na-obligate ninyo, na-disburse ninyo, mataas. Pero ang tanong ko is, bakit mababa or hindi pa lang kayo nag-update? Maybe it's just a matter of recording.
Yes, sir.
Ganun ba? So, as of August 20... August 31, ilan na yung obligation rate ninyo?
Sir, if I may, sir, for capital outlay, sir, JC. Opo. Ayan.
Kabuo na lang, maliit lang naman ang budget nyo, huwag niyong himayin na.
Sir,
Gusto ko lang malaman bakit mababa yung inyong obligation rate as of end of first semester. So baka hindi lang kayo nakapag-update ng records. Gusto ko malaman, as of August 31, ano na yung obligation rate ninyo?
Sir, the main reason, sir, for the...
Ninyo as of August 31, if it's available.
It's... Wala. Sir, we don't have, sir, the percentage yet, sir, but definitely, sir...
How much have you obligated as of August 31, 2018? Out of the 86.8 million pesos for 2018, magkano na-obligate?
Sir, the figures are not
Hindi nyo alam.
available.
Anyway, ang liit ng budget ninyo, pero may unused pa rin kayo, 2.4 million. Bakit? Ba't hindi nagagamit yung 2.4 million? By the way, that's your average from 2011 hanggang 2017. No, ang highest ninyo, I think this was in highest 9.2 million 2016. Yung 2012 ninyo, wala kayong unused. So, bakit meron pa kayong unused and lit-lit na ng budget?
Sir, for 2017, sir, we fully obligated our budget, sir. Actually, it's 99 something percent, sir.
Then, meron kayong 300,000 na unused.
Yes, sir. That pertains, sir, to our LEAP. Because, sir, we have... Yes, sir.
Okay,
we have,
now I understand. Sige. Sige, i-recommend ko na yung budget ninyo.
Mr. Chairman, sige. Well, I have to just this slight difference. No? Secretary, ilan ang tao ng PLLO? Yeah. Personnel. Para makita ng committee natin.
Plantilla, we have a total of 40 people.
40?
40.
Yes, 40.
And the failed ones, 35. So 5 are unfilled. And then plus 36 non-plantilla, we have a total of 71
Okay,
employees. Total.
Related question. How are they deployed? Lahat ba sila nasa Maynila or are some of them deployed all over the country?
No, we have the two houses. I have an undersecretary in the Senate with his staff, and I have also an undersecretary in the House, and then one also in the main office in Malacanang.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you do not have a tracking mechanism. Let's say may batas tayong pinasa. You have no mechanism aside from coordinating with, let's say, local governments or the congressmen or the senators kung na-implement ito on the ground.
We have Senator, because we are monitoring all the movements of our staff, the members of our staff, through the undersecretaries. And we are quite busy attending the cabinet cluster meetings because we have to hear the members of the cabinet in their proposed legislation. And then we coordinate with the desire of every cabinet member for possible legislation, aside from receiving requests from all over the country for possible legislation, which we pass on to the cabinet and also to Congress through the appropriate committees.
Thank you, Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Tatapusin ko na sana, pero anyway, one of your tasks, assigned tasks, yung mag-harmonize ng executive legislative consensus, di ba? Consensus building. Pero of late, we noticed na between and among executive offices, merong parang walang harmony. No, let's take for example different views on say the proposed charter change on federalism. Yung economic managers don't seem to agree with the other cabinet members. So if you cannot harmonize the agencies under the executive branch, how do we expect you to harmonize the executive and the legislative?
Well, the ultimate remedy is to report that to the President.
What will the President do to us?
He handles the stick. he has the stick. Well, in the matter of some differences in opinion, firstly, it's because that's part of democracy, and then notwithstanding the media disclosure of the non-harmonious relation, Mr. Senator, internally, we have conducted and we have attended meetings in order to iron out some differences.
The least that you can do is to appeal to them not to make it public. No? When there's disharmony, no, between and among agencies under the executive branch, wag nang pag-awayan sa publiko na magkakaiba pala yung views nila. So parang ang dating walang kumpas, di ba ba?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, Mr. Secretary, every time either one of us raises a point, nanganganak. Last point na lang. Okay. The first battleground. Now, I understand, we appreciate your efforts to harmonize, no? But this is you talking among yourselves. The first battleground is media. That's where you communicate to the intended beneficiaries and the unwitting victims in what direction government is moving. And as our chair said, no, we have a little problem there. No? Right now, yung rice shortage, whether it is real or perceived, ito, yung news lang kanina umaga. Apparently, there is a difference in opinion between the budget secretary and the Secretary of Agriculture. If I were an ordinary Filipino in a very long line queuing for rice, how do you think will I feel? So that, I think, is the challenge also before us, all of us, no? Not only you. But your task, I think, is not only to harmonize, but to communicate this. That's just my opinion. You are the experts. I put that on your desk para we can second the motion already of the chair.
That is a very tall order, Mr. Senator, but we will try our best because actually, to be frank about it, while we talk, we do not know if those that are concerned will actually listen to us.
Thank you. Again, may pahabol ba akong tanong? Unliquidated cash advance. May COA report dito, no? Meron kayong mga unliquidated cash advance. What is project the federalism? What is that? That's in connection with the COA report, huh?
Yes, in connection with the COA report, actually we are also mandated to coordinate with the drafting of the new constitution, and so we are involved in the information drive, and we have initiated some of these fora, and so we cannot avoid spending, Mr. Chair.
We're talking of a special cash advance, you know, and it's in violation of the COA regulation, imposing a 2-month limitation pagka special cash advance. Apparently have not complied. We have liquidate yung special cash advance ninyo that you used do sa project the federalism.
Regarding that particular issue, we have received a refund.
So have you settled the issue with COA already? Yung
yes,
1,140,000.
Yes.
Okay na yan.
Yes, Mr.
That's
Chair.
good to hear.
The government has already been refunded for that amount.
Okay, so with the permission of Senator Honasan, we'll terminate this committee hearing, at least that pertaining to the budget, proposed budget of PLLO. So baka abutin pa tayo ng mga ibang kasama namin who are not actually very happy when we spend our time in the lounge, ano. Mayroong mga usapan about the role of PLLO and how are you doing? Thank you very much.
Salamat, Mr. Chairs, and we are hoping to see you in Cebu sometime in the future.
So while they're dispersing, may we hear now from CHR? See a presentation, Gwen.
Good morning, Senator Lacson and Senator Anasan.
You know, I've been very kind to CHR.
I know,
For the past 2 years.
You are our guardian. First, I would like to say that the chair is extending his apologies because he has been taken ill and has to go to his doctor. That's why we are accompanied here by Commissioner Karen, who is the focal for administration. So she will do the presentation. And the Executive Director of the Human Rights Victims Claims Memorial Claims.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
you know,
sir.
when, we're not happy that the chair is indisposed. We are happy that providentially he's not here because we're preparing some questions to, you know,
Yes, sir.
manage a very partisan situation.
Yes, thank you so much.
If you know what I mean.
Yes, sir. And thank you so much for your understanding and support always. I would like to ask Com Karen to do the presentation. Thank you.
Good morning, Your Honors. I'm pleased to present the budget of the Commission on Human Rights, but allow me first to just give you some bits on the agency profile, and by way of review, we'd like to anchor our presentation, of course, on our mandate in the Philippine Constitution, Article 13, Section 17, as well as Article 2, Section 11, that states that the state values the dignity of every human person and guarantees full respect for human rights. Your Honors, as you know, the business of human rights is not just the business of the Commission on Human Rights, but the whole apparatus of government. The CHR in this scheme is an independent constitutional body and acts as an advocate, educator, monitor, and watchdog. Next slide, please. We have 16 regional offices and 8 sub-offices. We don't have an arm office, even if we propose to the Department of Budget and Management, but we do coordinate with the Regional Human Rights Commission through our regional offices with geographic proximity of the armed provinces. So if we take a look at the constitutional mandates of the Commission, we divide that into 3 clusters of services and programs. We have the protection services that look into our investigation mandate. We provide legal measures and provide for preventive measures and legal aid services to the underprivileged. We exercise visitorial powers over jails and detention facilities. In promotion services, we have the mandate to establish a continuing program of research, education, and information to enhance respect for human rights. And our policy service or program, we look to the mandate to recommend to Congress effective measures to promote human rights and to provide for compensation to victims of violations of human rights and their families. We also have the mandate to monitor government compliance with international human rights treaty obligations. And of course, the other is to grant immunity from prosecution to any person whose testimony or whose possession of documents or other evidence is necessary or convenient to determine the truth. This has been elaborated in many hearings here, particularly in the Senate where I sat before, regarding protection of whistleblowers and also witness protection. If we take a look at the processes of CHR regarding an alleged human rights violation, this is how we undertake things. Of course, the first is when we receive a complaint of a human rights violation or an alleged human rights violation. By complaint, walk-in or letter or email or post in Twitter or Facebook or motu proprio, CHR determines whether and evaluates whether this particular complaint should have specific CHR services, including referral to other government agencies. And if the case is taken cognizance of by the Commission, we say that in general, of course, we don't have any prosecutorial powers, but we do know for a fact that in the Human Security Act, we were given prosecutorial powers specific to that particular law. And the purpose of investigation, apart from, of course, investigating and finding a human rights violation, we also determine possible liability for equivalent crimes, but also recommending policy changes. And after we recommend filing of charges, for instance, it is up to the proper agencies of government, for example, the Ombudsman, National Prosecution Service, the courts, and other agencies to ensure accountability. And the CHR forwards our recommendations to these agencies. There are several laws that have elaborated on the constitutional mandates of the Commission. They're on the screen. Okay, next. So to just give you our highlights and major thrusts for 2019, we want to convey to you and enumerate what we commit for 2019 given adequate budget with your Honor's help. So in Human Rights Protection Program, we commit to have effective and intensive documentation and management of complaints of human rights violations, the conduct of nationwide clinics, operationalization of the National Preventive Mechanism, which is actually an obligation under the optional protocol on the Convention Against Torture, jail decongestion initiatives through monitoring of human rights conditions of detention facilities and penal rehabilitation centers and persons deprived of liberty through partnership with law enforcement and CSO's submission of annual reports on jail conditions, strengthened forensic and medical legal services in aid of investigation. In our promotion program, we commit to also strengthen our centers for human rights education. This is in partnership with the academe. Organization and mobilization of a network with civil society organizations to build public support for human rights events, promotional campaigns, the corresponding information, education, and communication materials, projection strategies for wider media coverage or wider public coverage. Focused and intensified communication efforts to improve appreciation and understanding of human rights, popularization of human rights through social media. In terms of policy advisory, we also commit to conduct nationwide community-based dialogues as we have in certain issues like the death penalty, completion of the National Inquiry on Climate Change, which is currently ongoing, the adoption and pursuance of a human rights research agenda and the human rights legislative agenda, encouragement of a human rights-based approach to legislation and governance. In addition, in policy advisory, services and programs, we commit to conduct legal research and policy studies, of course, continuing the independent reports on government implementation of human rights treaty provisions, engaging with charter and treaty-based bodies in the United Nations, as well as the institutionalization of a tripartite reporting and monitoring mechanism of the Universal Periodic Review and other country reports, and the establishment of state-based development and rollout of the Human Rights Impact Assessment Tool for business enterprises, which we generally call the field of human rights and business, or business and human rights. We also have and we commit to strengthen our specialized or thematic human rights programs such as the Child Rights Center, the Center for Gender Equality and Women's Human Rights, Center for Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, Center for Crisis, Conflict, and Humanitarian Protection, and the operationalization, which has started on the Human Rights Observatory on the following themes: gender-based violence, migrant workers' rights, climate justice, and indigenous peoples' rights. With respect to our cooperation and partnership program, we will continue to forge partnerships and cooperative arrangements or establish coordination and networking systems for the protection and promotion of human rights with, of course, national government agencies and local government units, the Constitutional Fiscal Autonomy Group, the judiciary, the legislative branch, the international human rights system, the network of our counterparts all over the world in what we call the Global Alliance of National Human Rights Institutions, which is the generic term for commissions such as ourselves, civil society, and the international development assistance agencies. So allow me to go into the significant accomplishments in 2017 and the first semester of 2018. If we look at the Human Rights Protection Services for 2017, we have already logged the documentation of new complaints, 7,500, and we will be reaching that goal considering that we are almost half of that when we tabulated for the first semester of 2018. So if we take a look at the breakdown of the 7,005 complaints and requests for protection services, in general, we see that 76% of that come from walk-in clients, 20% are motu proprio cases, and 4% are for investigative monitoring. When we say this, Your Honors, it's normally economic, social, and cultural rights violations, more than civil and political rights. If we take a look at the breakdown of the complaints and requests for protection services received by CHR, this is just a representation, a different representation, and shows the same figures that I have mentioned earlier. For human rights protection services, just to take a look at it per service, legal aid and counseling to victims, especially vulnerable groups including children, women, internally displaced persons, indigenous peoples, persons with disabilities, urban poor, etc. We have received 5,200 complaints in 2017 and 2,278 in the first semester. If we take a look at monitoring detention centers, our jail visitations covered in 2017 1,758, and the first semester is 848. Just to let you know also that October is Prison Awareness Month, so we will intensify our operations for jail visitations during that month. And then just giving you a figure of the direct assistance or transactional assistance that we have done for jail visitation, that numbers 9,070, and of course, again, as I've said, we will intensify that during October, which is the Prison Awareness Month. Financial assistance to victims and their families, as well as witnesses and their families, we have granted 1,455 in 2017. Ongoing processing is 847, and the figures for 2018 are 417 and 950 respectively. So just to give us a representation or a snapshot of what complaints and requests were received in 2017 on civil and political rights, 60% refer to right to life, 15% right to protection of honor and reputation, 13 is right to liberty and security, and the rest form freedom from torture, cruel, inhuman, and degrading treatment or punishment, right not to be deprived of property arbitrarily, right to freedom from discrimination, and others. If we take a look at the complaints and requests in the nature of economic and social rights, you will see here that 43% are right to freedom from arbitrary interference, right to freedom from discrimination on different grounds, right to receive fair wages and equal remuneration, and others. For social rights, this is the representation, 37%. Right to protection and special assistance of children, right to equal rights, responsibilities as to marriage, 12% is right to housing, etc. So to provide your honors with our budget utilization rate and where our resources were allocated in the past year, we are pleased to give you the information that CHR dispersed 88% and obligated 100% of the allotted budget for the HR protection services. That is based on our 2017 accomplishment report. Human rights promotion services, if we see here, in 2017, the number of activities represent 1,411 with 120,000 participants. In 2018, we see here the number of activities, 392 with 27,000 participants. Let me just explain this, Your Honor, that it seems like we're not reaching the target that was reached in 2017, but we are actually moving from transactional promotion services to transformational promotion services, owing to the fact that we've shifted our promotion services to include those that have wider reach, including social media, and also our other promotional events. So if we take a look at, let's say, press statements and releases, we've released in 2017 54, topics of which are campaign against illegal drugs, access to justice, martial law in Mindanao, CHR and human rights defenders, statements on vulnerable sectors and the impact of human rights impact on them, right to health, and others. We'll be pleased to give you a longer list of this. We just want to summarize. In human rights promotion services in 2017, we have utilized and disbursed 100% of the allotted amount for HR promotion services. So if we take a look at policy advisory services, we have had a total of 71 and 39 in 2018, mid-year. So if we take a look at the breakdown of policy advisory services, we have issued 16 position papers, HR policy advisories. Normally this is really directed to the executive, local governments, and the like. And human rights treaty monitoring reports, which we also draw from the demand arising out of human rights treaty obligations. So in 2018, we've had this much. So if we take a look at the list of, I am not going to include anymore the list, but let me just note that we have actually looked into the treaty monitoring reports this year on economic, social, and cultural rights, Convention Against Torture, comments on the concluding observations of the Convention on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, comments and recommendations on the Philippine-Costa Rica bilateral consultation meeting, just to give you an example. CHR intervention presented during the 64th CEDAW session, the Philippine Report for Habitat 3, and the report on the role of CHR as Gender and Development Ombud presented to the Committee on the Status of Women. The National Inquiry on Climate Change has also garnered global interest and support, being the first case filed before a Human Rights Commission seeking to establish a nexus between climate change and human rights. Our Human Rights Policy Advisory Services, in terms of the budget, has dispersed 85% and utilized 100% of the allotted amount for policy advisory services according to our 2017 accomplishment report. For our CHR budget in 2019, just to give you a summary, we have proposed a total of 689,706. I'm sorry, 1.1 billion 176,590, and the net came up with 689,706,000. Just to give you an idea, the basis for this year's budget is 693 million 43. So we have a decrease of about 3.3 million. So if we take a look at the breakdown or particulars, we have the PS at 343 million. We have MOOE at 294. Capital outlay, 21 million. So these are the particulars for each and every program. For documentation and management of complaints of HRVs, we had an increase of 8%, which covers inflation. Conduct of regular visitations, negative 3%. And then for human rights promotion, we've had an increase of 42.79. Human rights policy, an increase of 26.99. So these are just a, next please. Parang mali yung, okay, previous. Yeah, that's a representation of the snapshot of our budget allocation by allotment class. Okay, next. All right. This is BUR on obligations for as of December 21, which I've already related to you per program. And then, yes, okay, next, please. Okay, this is BUR on disbursement as of December 31, 2017, 87%. And then we have, as of June 30, 2018, BUR on obligations is at 45%. You may notice, sir, that capital outlay, we're lagging behind. As we speak, we have a Bids and Awards Committee opening of bids. A chunk of that is really going to be awarded, hopefully by today or tomorrow. So, and then if we look at the other disbursements, the heaviest quarter for the Commission in Human Rights is really the last quarter, owing to the fact that there are many celebratory events on human rights, the culmination of which is the Human Rights Day, December 10. So that's Human Rights Week is December 4 to 10. We also have the 18-day campaign against violence against women, which starts November 25. You also have International Migrant Workers Day, December 18. And of course, the beginning of the last quarter would be October 1 is Older Persons Day, and the Prison Awareness Week. So all these things are, especially promotional events, are really tucked in for the last quarter. So just to give you also the summary, for all, we have the, in general administration and support, we have from the net 204,946,000. The GAA is 297.89 for this current year. So we've had a dip of 85 million. Just to say that in the personnel services, there is just a slight decrease, but there has been a discrepancy uncovered for the GMIS, I think, is that the information software of DBM, where our positions were not, new positions were not actually reflected in the system of DBM, but we have actually reflected it. So in the net, there was a mistake because not all positions were covered when in fact we should be getting all positions in our budget funded. So support to operations, based on GAA, we have an increase of 26,448,000. In operations, we have increase of 13,466. And of course, we have new appropriations for with RLIP and maintenance and operating expenses. So that's a negative of 1.4. Okay. So Human Rights Promotion Program, again an increase of 21.8. Human Rights Promotion. Operations yan. Promotion, okay, there. And then Human Rights Policy, again, an increase of 23.611. So overall, Your Honors, we have a total of 721 million under the National Expenditure Program, 721,204,000, which includes the Human Rights Violations Victims Memorial Commission amounting to 31,498,000, added to 689,706,000. So this is the last two slides, Your Honor, or last three. So the net did not cover certain things that we wanted covered, Your Honor. Okay. Under MOO in capital outlay, we have the financial assistance. We asked for 5 million. We were given, I think, 3 million under this particular NEP. But the reason for this is that we are still providing and evaluating financial assistance to cover the previous Zamboanga siege, also the Marawi siege. So we need this to assist the victims, Your Honor. We would like to thank particularly Senator Lacson for providing us the funds, for facilitating the provision of funds for Region 8. We're happy to report that we already have the lot and we're starting to build already. So thank you, Your Honor, for that. But we would like to get, of course, additional land and building for 3 regional offices for next year. Well, right now, just to report to you that we have already buildings for Region 2, 3, 5, 12, and ongoing is Region 1, Region 8, and Caraga. Cebu will follow probably soon because of assistance from the Governance in Justice program, but we would like to, however, ask for additional 3 regions. Whoever will get the donation of land first, we will provide for that. And then, of course, we have the development, implementation, and maintenance of data protection measures in the amount of 3 million. As you know, the Data Protection and Privacy Act is now here, and then, of course, the National ID, so we need to step up our efforts on this. We have the Commission and Bank Documentation Management System in the amount of 4.7. The confidential fund, Your Honor, we were only given 1 million, but we request for the original restoration of 5 million in the 2018 levels, if I'm not mistaken, precisely because of the demand for vital information because of the current human rights situation in our country. Climate change and human rights monitor and advocacy in the climate justice framework. As you know, climate change is real. We're awaiting, hopefully not a super typhoon this time, but we really need to step up also on this. And this feeds into our national inquiry on climate change program. We also have to have the follow-through monitoring activities on the setting up of the Human Rights Observatory for Women or Gender-Based Violence, Children, Indigenous Peoples, and Migrants, and also our Human Rights Research Program, where we will have to engage the academe on that. So this gives you a snapshot of how we presented next. Okay, so 1.176,590 for the proposed and 689,706 for the NEP, and we would like to request, if we can, with your indulgence, the additional 486,884,000. Last slide, Your Honors, is a funds allocation for the regional, just to show you how we allocate our funds in the regional operations. This is a snapshot, and this is given on the basis of their requirements, demands in particular for programs or our services, mandatory expenses, and of course their past accomplishments, Your Honor. That ends our presentation, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. First question, this subcommittee is honored by the presence of the Senate President, Vicente Soto III. Good morning, sir. First question from the Chair. Where are the other 2 commissioners? Are they not as interested as you in seeing the budget passed?
Your Honor, Commissioner Lea Tanodra Armamento is in Geneva. She's reporting for the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, Your Honor. Commissioner Cadiz came in very, very late from Bangkok. Ano nga yung ano niya?
Okay.
He attended an international
Text
conference,
note.
Your Honor. And of course, our chairperson is
You
indisposed.
already mentioned earlier. You're asking for some augmentation, ano? I've already augmented your budget for 2017 and 2018, 233 million in 2017, 156 million in 2018. Now, I have a question related to this. Ano? Under 10368, di ba meron yung Human Rights Victims Claims Board. This was extended for another 4 years, but it became puncto suficio as of May 12,
May 12,
2018.
Yes, sir.
But there's 792 million. 792,628 still remains undistributed.
Apa.
So what happens to the money now?
Meaning, Your Honor, yung compensation
Yes.
or the operational money or MOOD?
Hindi
Is
na
the
distribute.
compensation.
792 million remains undistributed to
Yes.
Marcelo victims.
Aha.
So where's the money and what do you intend to do with that amount?
Your Honors, there is a pending Senate joint resolution.
Yes, I know.
Trying
It was
to
passed by the House.
preserve the funds.
Yeah.
It was passed by the House, but it is here in the Senate po. The reason for this is there was difficulty in the victims claiming monies because of IDs, IDs, and then the checks. Marami pong nangamatay na yung main victims, and then nagkakaroon po ng extrajudicial settlement. So yung iba hindi po nakahabol. There is, I think, in the number of 176 checks that have been unclaimed for various reasons that have been cited, difficulty in IDs, the victims have passed on, and their the bank is requiring many documents so that they can give the money. So talagang
How
kailangan
much
din
time
po-
are you asking do sa House Resolution, Joint Resolution number 26 ba yun? Yeah, 26.
Ang alam ko po, I don't think there was really a time limit for the Senate joint resolution. What the joint resolution wants to do is to preserve the funds until all these 176 or 171 claimants or checks will have been claimed. Yun po yung ano doon. But there are other reasons for that. Our Human Rights Victims Memorial Commission can answer
Director
as well.
Pisanto?
Good morning, sir. The Human Rights Victims Claims Board is a different agency from the one I'm handling. However, the Claims Board reports and documents will actually go to the Memorial Commission. I have here some statistics that was given by the Board Secretary for this purpose. The actual amount released already for reparations is 9.771 billion. The unclaimed checks are 180 checks, and they comprise actually 141,365, 154,000. The available funds is not, this has not yet been released, is 230 million. The deceased pays, on the other hand, those who received their checks in the name of their dead father or brother, number 158 checks. So this is, amount is about 110.7 million. So the amount that has not been given to the victims as reparations only comprise 230.8 million.
234?
230,
213.
230, sir. 230.
230.
230,
So that's 792.
No, sir. As of today.
As of today.
According to the board secretary who provided this.
Sir, what we are requesting therefore in the resolution, sir, actually to make the CHR the disbursing officer for those checks, because they have not yet, because the life of the human rights victims has already been extinguished. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Your Honor, just in addition, of course, we know that the exclusive jurisdiction to give the compensation is really with the Human Rights Victims Claims Board. They are under 10368. They are not under the Commission on Human Rights, but attached because of administrative issues. No? But the Senate joint, the joint resolution of both Congress will really help so that we can bridge that gap between the victims who have been awarded already and of course the compensation fund, Your Honor. So we request sana po the urgent passage of this joint resolution.
And the Senate President is here, and you know, we're a bit surprised kasi mukhang ngayon lang namin narinig na merong such an animal as Joint Resolution number 6.
It's authored po, if I'm not mistaken, by Senator Escudero.
Authored by Senator Escudero.
The version here po, that's what we were
anyway, the Senate President is checking the status of the Joint Resolution.
Thank you po.
Now, I was watching the presentation. You mentioned legal assistance and financial assistance. How do you go about this? Yung process at saka yung vetting, especially yung financial assistance to victims.
Opo. Normally po, when
ano yung mga parameters?
Opo. When we have financial assistance guidelines for this, no, Your Honor, we can provide you with a hard copy and the electronic copy of this. But generally, what happens is if we investigate and we find that there is a human rights violation, we give a certain amount which is graduated according to, parang points din po sa compensation po sa ano. But it's not compensation, but it's couched in financial assistance for the victims po, Your Honor. So, kunyari po, an extrajudicial killing case, it's 10,000 po. In the previous years, in the previous commissions, we're now the 5th iteration. I think it was in the 2nd or 3rd commission that we increased it to 15, pero hindi po talaga kaya ng budget, kaya binalik po namin sa 10 pagka loss of life po. There's community assistance also, like Zamboanga Siege. When we investigate each and every claim, we give community assistance to that po. But we'll be happy to provide you with the financial assistance.
What's important here is walang arbitrariness, walang discretion, merong strict policy guidelines.
There are criteria for that,
Okay.
Your Honor.
So,
And then, Your Honor, we also have a maximum amount lang, 10,000 for the grave violation.
and that also includes legal assistance, no? Hindi naman kayo-
Legal assistance comes with our legal services also, legal advice and all that. But we do refer them to, let's say, IBP or the Public Attorney's Office. Yung referral system na rin po ang nagko-cover din po nun.
Okay, yung COA audit report, I just hope that you can update.
Yes, sir.
Kasi as of January 31 pa itong record namin.
Okay.
So kung na-liquidate yun na ito, meron ng update, kindly provide the subcommittee so when I defend your budget on the floor,
Yes, sir.
I can address all these concerns.
Sir, I'm happy to report that we are fully liquidated as of March. We can give you a copy today.
Thank you. Senator Nasan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We just want to take advantage of the opportunity
Yes,
to educate ourselves.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Karen, I was looking at your breakdown of complaints and requests for protection services. Okay. Nakalagay dito 76% walk-in.
Opo.
And then, investigative monitoring 4%.
Opo.
And then motopropyo 20%.
Opo.
Is this a reflection of the, for lack of a better word, forgive the limited vocabulary, no? Of the strategy that CHR adopts?
No, Your Honor.
Yes.
No, Your Honor. I'm happy to...
Because
Sorry.
ang feeling ko lang dito, Kong Karen, no? Gwen, Director Carmelo, no? Is baka this relegates us to a reactive mode. So what I'm saying is, let me start by sharing with you a principle. Like, parang national security is not the domain of the security or defense sector only. Human rights, just like the environment, is everybody's business.
Yes,
Okay.
that's true po.
So we must harness not only the power and the budget of the commission, but of the entire, if not government bureaucracy, but the entire citizenry. So please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor, for the opportunity to explain. If you will take a look at the general complaints that we received, yes, the figures will not lie, it's 76%. We'd like to think that in some aspects, of course, admittedly, it is reactive because it is event-based, but we'd like to think that we are responsive to the event that has taken place and when we investigate. But of course, we have to take into consideration also that per regional office, we only have 2 to 4 lawyers and 7 to 10 investigators, Your Honor. And our regional offices are really small regional offices, despite the fact that we have asked the Department of Budget and Management to complement our regional offices with enough staff. Just by comparison, a medium-sized national agency of government would probably be at least 60 personnel in the regional office. We only have half or less than half of that. Just to point out, Your Honor, also, in the area of extrajudicial killings or alleged extrajudicial killings, our ratios are actually inverse because more than 90% of EJ cases are actually motu proprio cases as opposed to walk-in complaints, Your Honor. So that's why we said that in general, we do have 76% walk-in clients, and to only about 20+% that are motu proprio.
Okay. Thank you for the very comprehensive response.
To give you an exact figure, Senator, our lawyers in the central office is only 37.
Okay.
Okay, later. Yes, sir.
At the highest levels, which is beyond you and us. Is that a fairly accurate statement?
Yes, sir, because we are operating under a given budget, under a given structure.
We understand. Okay. Now, I do not know, no, that's why I'm asking. When you talk of, let's say, basic needs, like food, clothing, shelter, education, health, do these fall under rights? Okay. Now, would you agree that this is not purely the domain of the CHR, and we must harness the power of, let's say, the local government units, the ILG? So this has to be resolved at some level. Ngayon, I will stop there because I now have a better picture of the situation on the ground. Actually, I'm amazed at how you have pursued your mandate, not because of clear policy and a deeper sense of prioritization, but in spite of. Okay. Now, the way forward, if you are listening in to our PLLO, can you give us again an idea, Commissioner Karen, of how you have been utilizing your budget moving forward in terms of connectivity with, let's say, the ILG, the other agencies whose power and resources must be harnessed to accomplish your mission, assuming, again, at a higher level, we have a fairly clear sense of priorities. Please.
Well, Your Honor, as I've said, we've moved from information services, for instance, we've moved from transactional, meaning that we do seminars, let's say, in DIDM or in National Police Academy or PMA. We're trying to veer away from that, not necessarily abandoning it, but looking at transformational activities. So we've engaged heavily in social media, which is really the medium of the century. We've increased our visibility in news, for better or for worse sometimes. But we've responded, Your Honor. And then, of course, in terms of capital outlay, we've done our part to propose to the MITHI program I forget what it's exactly called, but that's the IT program in the DBM as well. Apart from that po, our programs, let's say, on community-based dialogues, where we go down and talk to the people, but not only the people, but also the different representatives of the agencies, including local government, Your Honor. So this is how we try to get in touch and coordinate, even if sometimes we're not really that welcome with the executive. We always have an open hand, Your Honor.
Sometimes, Kong Karen? Sometimes?
Well,
You are not welcome
Yeah.
by, can you run that by me again? You are not welcome by
by certain agencies of government, Your Honor.
who represent the executive branch?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, that's,
Just to give you an example,
I
last
think
year,
that's quite obvious, no? Sige, go ahead, please.
last year, Your Honor, it took Senator Lacson to broker a meeting with the Philippine National Police, despite the fact that we've been asking for meetings with them regarding the situation that we have because of the campaign against illegal drugs, which we don't not support. We do support that, but we are very concerned on the methods and the outcome of the campaign against illegal drugs.
by the way, Commissioner Karen, I noticed when you started talking about that issue, your voice went one octave higher. Is that a reflection of the...
Oh yes, sorry sir. But that's my normal level, Your Honor. I was nervous kanina eh.
I'm trying to lighten the discussion, this very serious issue, no? Because kanina, nung nandito si Senate President, sabi ko, very rare moments when 3/4 of the macho black in the Senate are present. But I'd like to share with you also, publicly, that we three are victims of human rights violations, but by our wives, huh? Yeah, anyway.
Well, that remains to be debated, Your Honor.
Now, we will not... hindi, yung connectivity, Commissioner Karen Gwen, we're more interested in that because this is actually how you become more cost... That's the way forward. And in fact, we have to admit to you that policymakers, politicians like us, have difficulty understanding and managing the technological revolution. Baka mas kaya nyo yan. Maybe that's one tool we can harness. So anyway, let me go back to my question. Magkano ang inallocate niyo moving in that direction, aside from the engagements at local level? Because while you're consulting, I want to make this as brief as possible. No?
Okay.
Maybe you can consider, you're the experts, no? You're the ones on the ground, that it would be different kung, let's say, these were elections. Siguro yung connectivity can cut through the, the time and motion dimensions. What I'm trying to say. In fact, if we start connecting everybody moving towards e-government, it just might make our 130,000 backlog in classrooms obsolete.
Yes.
I'm transposing that to your situation on the ground because you're engaging physically. Maybe any of you running for public office in the next... Okay, good. Because our people, if you were moving in that direction, would want to touch you, hug you. But in this case, maybe you can consider that as a force multiplier that will free some of your budget for these items and develop more fiscal space for more efficiency on the ground. Okay, so but you can process that by yourself now. So let me go back to my original question. So magkano ang...
Let me just confirm with them, but we do have investments already in a multimedia center, Your Honors, that has a teleconference room as well, and we're going to produce our own shorts in Facebook and social media, just to also give you an idea of what the impact has been.
Okay, Karen, because
yes, sir.
I'm sure the chair is raring to approve your budget already, no? But I'm just saying, please consider this and make it part of your submissions. Para when the chair depends your budget in plenary, alam niyo naman, the questions come from all directions. Okay? Yeah. My last point is public information. We have been exposed to interesting debates in public. So, which tells us that you cannot limit yourselves to what happens in your discussion groups, no? The first battleground is media. Okay? That's where we have to continue fighting and hopefully win in the hearts and minds of our people. Now, can you give us an idea, very briefly, how you have fared in terms of budgetary allocation for public information?
We have our promotions budget, Your Honor, but we do have a spot in a radio station. I think it's Radio Veritas, correct?
Your Honor, we're actually expanding our connection with media in terms of yung broadcast. We have engaged with Radio Veritas for a short program, and then we have developed also our database in terms of connecting with communities like observatories so they can easily connect with us through internet and Facebook, etc. But as you have pointed out, we really have to develop the connection between human rights and the lives of the people. I think that's what's very important.
Let me add to your arsenal of, I was going to say weapons, but tools na lang tayo because of its implication on my history. No? Okay, so tools. Look at the NTC charter. They are required, government programs. Hindi ko alam kung 30 minutes a day or 30 hours a month. Requirement yun, Hindi ko alam rin kung prime time or, alam mo na, yung mga graveyard. Okay. You have to harness that. We've raised this issue in every hearing. Tingnan ninyo because that's by law. By law. Okay?
Sir, our charter is pending with the Senate, actually.
Yung sa mga franchise na ipasa namin, merong provision doon na nag-aalat sila dapat ng 10 minutes or 10% of the total amount paid. So you can avail of that. Kung meron kayong paid advertisements na say 10 million, pwede kayong humirit ng 1 million worth of free advertisements. No? That's in the law. Kasi standard yan sa lahat ng mga franchise laws na ininak namin for government. But of course, CHR is part of government, so you can avail of that. No?
Binabanggit ito because you need really to mobilize. No? But some decisions, unfortunately, have to be resolved at a higher level, even higher than us. No? All we can do is raise this and then maybe coordinate through the LEDHAC about the priorities, no? But ang worry kasi namin, Karen, no? Gwen, is if that good things you want to do, not only in your human rights domain, are not institutionalized, you know, the pendulum might swing again after President Duterte, which brings me to my last point. Itong human rights violations victims memorial commission. It says here, the mandate, the Human Rights Violation Victims was created, primary establishment, memorial in honor of the human rights violations and victims during the Marcos regime. I'm not trying to imply anything. So does that mean that after President Duterte's term, there is a possibility that we will have a memorial for the victims of human rights during the Duterte administration? No. I'm asking because
if that is the will of Congress, it will happen, Your Honor.
Okay. I think, you know naman our role 32 years ago, no, when we had, ngayon kasi we have more yesterdays than tomorrow. So kaya kami, maybe more wisdom or patience, no? 86 was about being for something. Di ba? Okay. It's not primarily against. You could have put somebody else there and it would have happened anyway. Now, I don't know how we can influence together the situation para we will avoid focusing on personality targets. Now, let me bring you up to speed. Di ba? Public order si Senator Lacson. Depends ako. Every hearing we conduct, we never expose our strengths and weaknesses as a nation, as a people, to friend or foe. Temporary friends or foes. Too much is at stake on national television. To memorialize this polarization in our society, backed up by historical data, I think is not the proper direction to go. I'm just putting that on your table para in whatever manner you can influence the situation beyond your budget. Okay? So just think about this because the future, you have more investment in the future. Okay? Yung submissions, pahabol na lang ninyo, but thank you for your patience and for your answers. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Nasan. You intend to request for augmentation for the 3 regional offices.
Yes,
My
sir.
suggestion is, the moment you get a donated lot,
Yes.
kindly submit to us
Okay.
the requirements, and the ideal time should be before we submit our subcommittee report.
Oh, okay.
And this should come after the break, so mga first week of November.
Okay, sir.
Doon na namin incorporate yung augmentation.
Apo.
But without the proper documents, mahirap i-justify.
Apa.
Kasi saan nyo ilalagay yung regional office. No?
Okay.
So,
Sige pa.
yun. Yun uli yung tulong ko sa inyo. And yung sa mga new complaints, ano yung nature ng karamihan ng mga complaints? Ano yung pattern? And then I'd like to have a comparison between the President Duterte presidency at saka yung during his presidency. Sa nag-shift yung nature ng mga complaints na dumarating sa inyo?
We'll
Especially
provide you with the
walk-in.
information, Your Honor.
Okay, kindly submit.
An example would that po, migrants workers concerns. IPs, they come to us also. Even if may NCIP, they still
Ano yung
come to us.
pinaka-dominant?
Ngayon po, of course, right to life, but more of the IPs, involving IPs, LUMADs.
And hindi ito dating dominant doon sa mga ano nyo?
Hindi po.
nagdo-dominate?
Ngayon po, mas pumupunta
Is
sila
it
sa
good or
amin.
bad?
I think it's good.
It's good because they're being educated.
Yes, po. And even the migrants po, they
And
don't
this
come to
could
us.
be
But
the outcome of your transformational from transactional, di ba? Kasi yung transactional, parang re-echo, di ba? Nire-re-echo nyo and pwede kayong maputol kung hindi mag-re-echo yung initial audience ninyo. But this time around, you make use of social media, which is, yan na talaga yung medium of communication ngayon eh.
Public education
Yeah,
po.
public
talaga.
education, and then you go direct to the communities. Anyway, meron pa, Mr.
Mr. Chairman, right to life. I will go back to media. Okay, I will not comment anymore about what I think media has developed into, for better or for worse. No? Tingnan ko rito yung 2007 complaints and requests, Commissioner Karen, no? Gwen? Yes. Right to life, I'm not sure if my color coding is correct. Right to life yung pinakamalaki, 60%. Tapos, right to protection of honor and reputation. Is this 6%?
No, it's 15,
15. Okay, whatever. 15. So it's my eyes, it's not your chart. I would like to emphasize this to you because occasionally, I'm sure as you have painfully experienced, if you are tried by publicity in the 6 o'clock news, okay lang if your threshold is high. But you know, your families are watching.
Yes, that's
Your children will go to school the following morning. No? And sometimes, I don't know what has happened. No? Media, especially social media, has developed into an institution, a mechanism that has rendered the courts irrelevant. Pag, you know, if you are judged and convicted by publicity, I mean, its effects are far-reaching. Maybe you can consider that as one point of emphasis naman para, yeah, and it has been recurring.
Yes, Your Honor.
In fact, there are some colleagues, let me in a previous lifetime, even now, no? When the right to protection of honor and reputation is more important than life.
Yes, that's true.
If you will destroy my reputation, my name, and the future of my children, patayin mo na lang ako. Okay?
That's true.
I just want to put that on your table para you can deal with this naman comprehensively. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honors. Ang sabi nga po nila, your rights offline are also your rights online. So there has to be respect, and we have to use the tool as a medium to have closer relations and not to divide. No?
Yes, Kong Karen, are you a lawyer?
I'm the I'm not a lawyer, Your Honor. I'm the only non-lawyer in the 5th Commission.
Okay, ito additional input. Pasensya na kayo, no? We have a little time pa naman. The judiciary has not been spared from institutional damage. Okay? Why? Because a judicial determination unleashes the coercive powers of the state. Warrant of arrest, TRO, etc. Diba? Pag wala kang pag-asa ron, without well-meaning friends and the necessary resources, no? Where will you run? Are we surprised we have criminals and terrorists? Diba? Sometimes the last resort is to educate everybody about why sniper rifles and explosives were invented. Is that the direction we want to take? So, please, I put that at your desk again. I'm sorry to overload you. Nawalan na tuloy kayo ng appetite for your merienda. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Senator Nasan. On that note, we are now ready to recommend your budget to the plenary. My last parting word na lang is stay relevant, stay focused, and be more objective. When I say more, it's not saying that you're not objective. Ano?
Yes, Your Honor.
Basta yun lang. So, see you sa plenary na lang.
Thank you,
Maraming
Your
salamat sa
Honors.
inyo.
Thank
Magandang
you.
umaga.
Thank you, Your Honors.